When I opened the ivory envelope, I didn't realize it was an invitation to my own humiliation. The paper was thick, expensive, the kind that whispered money. Eleanor Hartwell requests the pleasure of your company at a garden party. Saturday the 15th, 2 p.m. Thornwood Estate. Thornwood Estate, my property. 12 acres of rolling green and history, a crumbling jewel I'd bought at a bankruptcy auction 3 years ago. The plan had been to renovate and resell. Then my sister called me, crying about her landlord, the kids, the schools, the rent. I'd said, move into Thornwood for now. Just until you get back on your feet. That was 4 years ago. Now she lived there as if she'd been born into the walls. I never charged her rent. Never asked her to leave. I kept paying the mortgage, insurance, property tax, while she played hostess on my lawn. The invitation said garden attire. So I wore a simple sundress and sandals. My practical car rattled up the drive I'd had repaired 2 summers back. The gardens were immaculate. Thanks to the landscaper, I still paid monthly. The fountain sparkled in the sunlight, the same fountain I'd spent $12,000 restoring. And there she was, Eleanor, near the rose garden, surrounded by people in linen and silk, laughing like she owned the world. When she saw me, her smile tightened. Diana. You came. You invited me. Yes, well, she waved a hand. It was more of a courtesy, given the guest list. Douglas, her husband, appeared beside her with a drink. Didn't expect to see you here, Diana. It's a garden party, I said. I like gardens. Eleanor's laugh was light and brittle. Of course you do, though I imagine the gardens you're used to are different from Thornwood's. The insult was so smooth it almost passed unnoticed. Almost. Guests floated around us, murmuring compliments. Your estate is breathtaking, Eleanor. Oh, it's been a labor of love, she said, beaming. When we acquired Thornwood, it was in terrible shape. But Douglas and I have worked tirelessly to restore it. Acquired. I took a long sip of my punch, tasting sugar and bile. Her daughters flitted across the lawn, showing friends the property. This is where we host our summer parties, Melissa said. Mom says we'll do my graduation here next year. It's the perfect venue. Her younger one, Sophie, was posing by the pond, her phone angled high. The caption glowed on her screen, my house. Living my best life. My house. I stood there, surrounded by laughter and champagne, feeling invisible in my own home. Then Eleanor's voice cut through the music. Diana, could we speak privately? We walked toward the cottage. When we were out of earshot, she turned sharply. You need to leave. I blinked. I just got here. I know. But this event is important. Douglas's business partners are here. The girls' friends' parents. It's not appropriate for you to stay. I stared at her. Because I'm dressed casually? Because, she hesitated, you look like you don't belong here. Not belonging. The words landed like stones in my stomach. This is a certain level of society, Diana. There are expectations. You work as a bookkeeper, you drive a Honda. I own an accounting firm, I interrupted. She didn't hear me. And these people, they own companies, they sit on boards. She faltered. You're the struggling sister. I'm sorry, but that's reality. I looked back toward the crowd. People in polished shoes, sipping champagne on my lawn, beneath the oak trees I'd paid to save from disease. So you want me to leave your garden party? She nodded quickly, relieved. I knew you'd understand. You've always been practical. Something inside me went very still. Douglas was waving for her to come back. Eleanor. Bring Diana, Charles wants to meet everyone. We returned. Charles was older, his cufflinks gleaming, his handshake perfunctory. I was just telling Douglas, he said, this property could be very valuable if subdivided. You'd make a fortune. Oh, we'd never sell, Eleanor said sweetly. Thornwood is our family legacy. Everything has a price, Charles replied, smiling. I heard the words like a distant echo. Our family legacy. They were planning to sell my land. When Eleanor mentioned struggling with the mortgage, I almost laughed. There is no mortgage, I said quietly. The music stopped. Heads turned. What? Eleanor's smile faltered. You said you're struggling with the mortgage, I said, voice calm, steady. But the property is owned outright. By me. Silence rippled across the party. I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope I'd brought, the one I'd prepared that morning. Open it. Eleanor's hands trembled as she unfolded the papers. Her eyes moved over the words and then stopped. Thornwood Estate, she read. Owner, Diana Mitchell. Gasps spread through the crowd. Douglas grabbed the papers. This is fake. She couldn't afford. I'm a chartered accountant, I said. I manage over $30 million in client portfolios. I bought Thornwood as an investment. Eleanor's voice was barely a whisper. But you drive a Honda. I drive a reliable car. That doesn't make me poor. The second page fluttered open in her shaking hands. Douglas read it aloud. Notice to vacate. Eleanor and Douglas Hartwell are hereby notified that their occupancy of Thornwood Estate is terminated. You have 30 days to vacate. Her voice cracked. You're evicting us? You asked me to leave your party because I embarrassed you, I said softly. I'm extending the same courtesy. Poor people aren't welcome at my estate either. Eleanor's face drained of color. Douglas's mouth opened, then closed again like a fish gasping on the shore. Around us, the party was collapsing in slow motion, laughter dying, whispers rising, the string quartet standing awkwardly with their instruments halfway raised. You can't do this, Douglas finally said, his voice brittle. We have rights. We've lived here for years. 4, I corrected him softly. Without a lease. Without rent. Out of my generosity. Eleanor shook her head as if that could make the truth vanish. No, that's not possible. You said you were buying it as an investment. I thought it was for the family. I bought it, I said. And you moved in. Temporarily. My sister's manicured hands clutched the deed like a lifeline. You can't just kick us out. You asked me to leave, remember? My voice was calm. Too calm. Because my dress and my car made people uncomfortable. Her mouth opened, but no words came. I turned slightly toward the guests, people who'd spent the afternoon sipping champagne on my lawn while I was treated like an intruder. You all heard her, didn't you? I asked quietly. Poor people aren't welcome here. Well, I'm just maintaining standards. Charles, the investor, stepped forward, inspecting the deed with professional curiosity. This looks legitimate, he murmured. Properly recorded. She's the owner. Douglas's face went gray. Eleanor's voice cracked. Diana, please. Let's talk about this privately. You had your private moment, I said. You used it to tell me I didn't belong. Her shoulders trembled. Mascara streaked down her cheeks in thin black lines. I'd seen my sister cry before, crocodile tears, usually, but this was different. This was panic. We'll pay rent, Douglas said quickly, his words tumbling over themselves. Back rent. Whatever you want. I looked at him for a long moment. For years of fair market rent for a 12-acre estate? That's about $12,000 a month. 48 months, plus taxes, insurance, maintenance. Call it $700,000, give or take. He swallowed hard, his eyes darting toward the guests. Or, I said, you can vacate in 30 days. I'll eat the loss. Eleanor pressed a hand to her mouth. Where will we go? The girls' school, Douglas's work, our friends. Your friends, I repeated, scanning the silent crowd. The ones who watched you humiliate your sister? Those friends. No one met my eyes. I took a step closer to Eleanor. You taught your daughters to believe this was their house. Sophie posts pictures of my pond. Melissa talks about her graduation here. You built their lives on a lie. Diana. Don't, I said sharply. You told them I was struggling. That you were helping me. Melissa, her face pale, whispered, Mom told us you didn't have much. That we should be grateful, not to make you feel bad. I turned to her gently. I'm not struggling, sweetheart. I own this estate. I own my business. I live simply because I choose to. That's not poverty, that's peace. Eleanor's breath hitched. I didn't mean to. Yes, you did, I said quietly. You wanted to believe you'd built something better than me. You needed that story. Douglas sank into one of the rented chairs, the white linen crumpling beneath him. We thought there was a family trust, he muttered. There isn't. There's just me, I said. Working 70 hours a week. Living modestly. Paying every bill while you played Lady of the Manor. The guests were leaving now, discreetly, murmuring excuses, avoiding eye contact. The elegant garden party had turned into a crime scene. "You'll regret this," Douglas said, his voice suddenly hard. "People talk. They'll say you destroyed your own family." I met his eyes. "They can say whatever helps them sleep at night. I've already been the embarrassment, remember? The poor sister. The one who didn't belong." Eleanor reached for my arm. "Please. You don't understand what this will do to us. The girls." "I understand perfectly." I stepped back, freeing myself from her touch. 30 days. The cottage is available for 2 weeks if you need to pack. After that, the locks change. Any belongings left behind will be considered abandoned. Her mouth trembled. "You can't mean that." "I do." For a long moment, all I could hear was the soft hum of the fountain, the one I'd restored, now bubbling gently between us like a witness. "You said I understand my limitations," I said quietly. "You were right. I can't keep supporting people who think I'm an embarrassment." Eleanor looked small then, dwarfed by the grandeur she'd borrowed. Around us, her perfect illusion crumbled, the silk, the champagne, the polite smiles. I gathered the papers from the table, slid them back into the envelope, and turned toward the drive. Behind me, she whispered my name. I didn't look back. At the car, I paused for one last glance. Eleanor stood in the middle of the lawn, surrounded by wilted roses and the remnants of her perfect afternoon. The music had stopped. The laughter had died. And for the first time in years, Thornwood was silent, listening, maybe, for the sound of its real owner coming home. I thought peace would feel like freedom. Instead, it felt like waiting for a storm that never stopped building. For the first time in years, my phone stayed silent. No family updates, no holiday photos, no texts from Eleanor pretending everything was fine. I told myself I didn't care. I'd drawn the line. I was done being the safety net, the invisible sister in the background of her perfect life. But silence has its own kind of weight. It presses down, fills the cracks, makes you doubt. 3 weeks after the party, I got the letter. Not a text, not an email, a letter, thick and official, from an estate attorney whose name I didn't recognize. To Miss Diana Kent, it began. "This correspondence concerns the late Mr. and Mrs. Kent's final testament, filed and held in trust pending a new claim." I read the line twice. My parents had died years ago. Their estate had been settled, or so I thought. The next page was worse. A secondary will, dated 5 years later, has surfaced. "Your sister, Mrs. Eleanor Hayes, has filed a claim asserting full ownership of Thornwood under revised terms." I felt my pulse in my throat. My hand shook. 5 years later? That was after the sale. After I'd already bought the property outright, legally, with my own money. I called the number at the bottom of the page. The lawyer's tone was too polite. "Yes, Ms. Kent, I understand this is unexpected. Mrs. Hayes has petitioned the court to freeze any further actions concerning the estate until the matter is reviewed." In other words, I said flatly, "She's trying to take it back." "I can't comment on motive," he replied. "But yes, that would be the effect." I hung up. The silence afterward was unbearable. Eleanor wasn't just angry, she was retaliating. That evening, I sat on the porch of my small house, the one I actually lived in, staring at the pond behind it. The frogs were loud, the air thick with early summer humidity. I'd spent my life building something steady, something that couldn't be taken away. And still, here she was, clawing at it. I opened my laptop and began digging. Property records, filings, every document I could find. My purchase of Thornwood was clean, recorded, and unchallenged. There was no mention of a secondary will anywhere. Then, around midnight, I found it. A scanned PDF filed just days after the party, after the humiliation. The so-called new will left Thornwood entirely to Eleanor, claiming our parents had promised it verbally, and I had acted under false pretenses. I almost laughed. It was absurd. But it was also official. Eleanor wasn't stupid. She'd hired someone to make it look real. The next morning, my phone buzzed for the first time in weeks. Her name lit up on the screen. "Eleanor, we should talk." For a full minute, I just stared at it. Then I typed back one word. "Diana, no." 5 minutes later, she called. I didn't answer. Then she called again. And again. On the fifth ring, I gave in. Eleanor, I said, my voice flat. You didn't have to make it this way, she began, her tone brittle but practiced. You humiliated me. You humiliated our family. I'm only trying to fix what you broke. By fabricating a will? A pause. Then, don't make this ugly, Diana. You can still walk away with something. Sell the house to me quietly, and I'll drop the filing. No one has to know. I let out a short, humorless laugh. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering you peace, she said. You've always been dramatic. I'm trying to be practical. You're trying to save face, I snapped. You don't care about peace. You care about being seen as the victim. Her voice softened, dangerous, almost pitying. Do you really want this to get public? Because it will. And you know how people talk. They'll say you tricked your own parents. That you forged documents. That you manipulated me. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I didn't do any of that. They won't care, she said gently. They'll just love the story. That's when it hit me, she wasn't doing this just for the house. She was doing it because she couldn't stand losing control of the narrative. Eleanor needed to be the center, the one people pitied, the one people rallied around. You're going to regret this, I whispered. I already regret trusting you, she said coldly, and hung up. For days, I barely slept. I contacted my attorney, gathered every receipt, every record. But the damage was already spreading. Old friends stopped replying. A neighbor crossed the street when she saw me. Online, whispers began: family fraud, legal dispute among sisters. Eleanor was feeding them. Carefully. Quietly. And beneath the anger, I felt something deeper, something colder. She wanted to ruin me publicly before the truth could save me privately. That night, I drove out to Thornwood. The gates were locked, but I knew the code. The house was dark. Empty. I stood there, staring up at the windows, the same windows I'd looked out of as a child, dreaming of escape. Now, all I wanted was to take back the home that had become a weapon. The wind rustled through the oaks, carrying the faintest echo of laughter, the kind that lingers in memory long after the people are gone. Somewhere inside that silence, I made a decision. If Eleanor wanted a war, I'd give her one. At first, I thought it was my reflection. A trick of headlights, maybe. But then the shadow moved. Someone was inside the house. I killed the engine, the night falling silent around me. Crickets, wind through the trees, and beneath it, something else. The faint hum of electricity, a light on upstairs. My pulse spiked. No one was supposed to be there. Thornwood was empty, locked, sealed, waiting for the court to sort out what my sister had unleashed. I got out quietly, gravel crunching under my shoes. The iron gates loomed behind me like witnesses. My breath came in short, uneven bursts as I slipped the key into the side door. The old hinges groaned. Inside, the air smelled of dust and lavender, the ghost of my mother's perfume still clinging to the walls. Hello. My voice echoed softly. No answer. I moved through the hallway, my flashlight trembling slightly in my hand. Every picture on the wall, the family portraits, the vacations, the staged smiles, stared back like silent accusations. At the foot of the staircase, I froze. Footsteps. Above me. Slow. Deliberate. I climbed, each step creaking under my weight. The house seemed to breathe around me, old wood shifting, pipes murmuring. Then I saw it, the light spilling from the master bedroom. The door was open just a crack. I pushed. Eleanor sat on the edge of the bed, wearing one of our mother's silk robes. Her hair was undone, her eyes red. On the dresser beside her, a half-empty glass of wine and a stack of old photo albums. She looked up at me, startled but not surprised. You came. My throat tightened. What are you doing here? This is still my home, she said softly. It's not. You broke in. She gave a small, bitter laugh. You always loved rules. Contracts. Numbers. I just wanted to feel something familiar again. I looked around, the bed our parents once shared, the window overlooking the garden. You should leave, Eleanor. She shook her head slowly. Do you remember when we used to hide under that bed during thunderstorms? You'd hold my hand and tell me nothing could hurt us. That was before you started being the one who hurt me. Her eyes glistened. You think I wanted this fight? I just wanted to belong. To have something that felt like ours. Ours. My voice cracked. You stole everything I worked for, and you still want to pretend it's some kind of sisterly misunderstanding? She stood, her robe slipping from one shoulder. You've always had the moral high ground, haven't you? Always so noble, so righteous. But tell me, Diana, when did you become so cold? When you stopped being my sister? For a moment, we just stared at each other. Two ghosts trapped in the same house. Then she said quietly, you think you're stronger than me. But you're not. You just hide it better. Her words hung between us like smoke. What are you planning to do? I asked finally. She looked past me toward the window. I already did it. Something in her tone chilled me. What do you mean? She smiled faintly, tired, almost peaceful. You'll find out soon enough. Before I could move, she picked up a folded document from the dresser and dropped it into my hands. It was another version of the will, but this time, with her signature crossed out, replaced by a single line. I rescind all prior claims. My hands trembled. Eleanor, what? She walked toward the door. You win, Diana. Congratulations. You always do. Wait. I grabbed her arm. Where are you going? She pulled free gently. Home. You're home, I whispered. Her eyes softened. No. I lost that a long time ago. And then she was gone down the stairs, through the front door, swallowed by the night. I stood there, clutching the paper, the silence roaring in my ears. The next morning, the police called. A car had been found at the bottom of the ravine, a mile from the estate. They said it looked like she'd swerved off the road. Instant. No sign of struggle. For a long time, I couldn't speak. I sat on the porch of Thornwood, the letter still in my hands, the ink smudged from tears I didn't remember shedding. People said it was tragic. That sister shouldn't let pride destroy them. They didn't understand, it wasn't pride. It was survival. In the end, I inherited everything I'd fought for. The estate, the land, the silence. But some nights, when the wind moves through the trees just right, I swear I can hear her voice as soft, accusing. You always win, Diana. Maybe she's right. But victory feels nothing like I imagined. It's cold. It echoes. I walk through the empty halls now, the same ones we used to race down as children. The laughter is gone. The light, too. Just the creak of old wood and the hum of memories that won't die. Thornwood is mine. But it doesn't feel like home. The lawyers closed the case quietly. No press, no scandal, no accusations. Just paperwork and silence. Sometimes I wonder if Eleanor planned it that way, her final performance, the ultimate redemption arc. In death, she became the victim again. And me? The villain who won. But every time I look out the window and see the reflection of two children playing by the pond, one laughing, one watching, I remind myself of a truth I can't escape. You never really win against family. You just survive them.